Grandma, don't trust Linda, ever. My granddaughter Maya whispered those words under the wedding table, and I felt my heart drop into my stomach. I was terrified. Above us, my son Marcus was dancing with his new bride Linda, their first dance as husband and wife, and 200 guests were clapping and cheering. But down here, in the shadows beneath white linen, Maya's small hand pressed a folded piece of paper into mine. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Read it when you get home. Dad's house. It's yours, not hers." The band played louder, drowning out my questions. Why would a 7-year-old say something like that at her father's wedding? What did she know that I didn't? And why did Marcus look so strained when he smiled at Linda? "I'm Gloria. I'm 62 years old, and that September evening I wore my best charcoal cardigan over a dark dress, my small gold hoop earrings catching the light from the chandeliers. I twisted my short natural hair that morning, making sure the silver streak at my right temple lay smooth. The thin gold ring on my left hand, the one my late husband gave me 40 years ago, felt heavy. Marcus was all I had left. Seeing him marry Linda should have filled me with joy, but Maya's warning left ice in my veins. I smiled through the toasts. I hugged the bride. I cut the cake, but my fingers never let go of that folded paper. The reception continued around me like a dream I couldn't wake from. Linda's friends clustered near the bar, laughing too loud. Marcus's pilot colleagues stood in their dress uniforms, telling stories about flights and near misses. I watched Linda move through the crowd, her white dress trailing behind her like snow, and I tried to see what Marcus saw in her. They'd met 2 years ago at a charity gala. She was a pharmaceutical sales representative, beautiful and polished, with perfect teeth and perfectly styled blonde hair. She'd swept into Marcus's life like a summer storm, and 6 months later they were engaged. I tried to be happy for him. His first wife, Maya's mother, had died of cancer when Maya was 2. Marcus had been alone for 5 years, raising Maya by himself, flying routes across the Atlantic and coming home exhausted. He deserved love. He deserved happiness. But something about Linda always felt wrong to me. The way she smiled never quite reached her eyes. The way she touched Marcus's arm felt calculated, not affectionate. The way she looked at my house the first time she visited, like she was measuring it, pricing it, planning something. I'd pushed those feelings down. I told myself I was being a jealous mother, overprotective and suspicious. But now, with Maya's note burning in my hand, those feelings came roaring back. When I finally got home that night, I sat at my kitchen table under the yellow light and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was Marcus's, not Maya's. My son had written this note and given it to his daughter to pass to me. "Mom, if you're reading this, something happened. Linda doesn't know about the account. Bank of Tennessee, account number 4477828291103. The house deed is in your name. I made sure, don't let her take it. I love you, Marcus." My hands shook. The paper crinkled. What account? What was he talking about? Marcus was a pilot for Skybridge Airlines. He made good money, but he'd never mentioned a secret bank account. And why would Linda try to take my house? The house was mine. Marcus had insisted I keep it after his father died. I'd raised Marcus here. I'd painted every room. The deed had my name on it. Gloria Jean Carter, clear as day. I looked at the clock. It was past midnight. I couldn't call Marcus now, not on his wedding night. I'd wait until tomorrow. I folded the note and tucked it into my purse. Then I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying Maya's frightened face, Marcus's tight smile, Linda's perfectly glossy lips as she'd hugged me and said, "I'm so glad to be part of the family, Gloria." The next morning, I woke up with a headache and a sense of dread I couldn't shake. I made coffee and sat at the table. The note in front of me. I read it 5 more times, looking for hidden meanings, trying to understand what Marcus was telling me. The house deed is in your name. I made sure. Why would he need to make sure? The house had been mine for 24 years. Unless someone was trying to take it. Unless Linda was trying to take it. I picked up my phone and called Marcus. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. "Hey, this is Marcus. Leave a message." His voice sounded tired, even in the recording. I hung up without leaving a message. What would I even say? "Your daughter gave me a weird note, and now I'm paranoid." I decided to wait. Marcus and Linda were leaving for Cancun that afternoon. They'd be gone for 10 days. When they got back, I'd sit down with Marcus and ask him what was going on. In the meantime, I'd check the house deed myself, just to be sure. I drove to the county clerk's office on Union Street. The building was old and bureaucratic, with fluorescent lights and linoleum floors. I waited in line for 20 minutes, then asked the clerk to pull the deed for my property. She typed into her computer, frowned, and typed some more. "Ma'am, I'm showing 2 deeds for this address," she said. My stomach dropped. 2? One in your name, filed in 1998, and one in the name of Linda Marie Carter, filed 3 months ago. I gripped the counter. "That's impossible. I never sold my house." The clerk shrugged. "According to our records, you transferred ownership to Linda Carter on June 14th. It's all here, notarized and filed." "Can I see it?" She printed the document and handed it to me. There it was, a transfer deed, signed by me, except I'd never signed it. The signature looked like mine, the loops and curves almost perfect, but I knew I hadn't written it. Someone had forged my name. I stood there, staring at the paper, and felt the world tilt. Linda had stolen my house. She'd forged my signature and filed a fake deed, and according to the county, my house now belonged to her, and Marcus had known. That's why he'd written the note. That's why he'd told Maya to warn me. He'd found out what Linda was doing, and he'd tried to protect me. I drove home in a daze. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I kept thinking about Linda's smile at the wedding, the way she'd hugged me and called me family. She'd been planning this for months. She'd married my son to get access to my house, and now she was going to take it from me. I parked in my driveway and sat there, staring at the house I'd lived in for half my life. The blue shutters I'd painted. The porch swing my husband had built. The rose bushes I'd planted. The year Marcus was born, this was my home, and I wasn't going to let her take it. I went inside and called my nephew Jerome. He was a paralegal at a firm downtown, smart and resourceful. I trusted him. "Aunt Gloria." "What's wrong?" he asked, as soon as he heard my voice. I told him everything, the note, the wedding, the forged deed. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Aunt Gloria, this is serious. If Linda forged your signature, that's fraud, but you'll need proof. You'll need a handwriting expert, and you'll need a lawyer." "How much will that cost?" I asked. "Thousands," he said. "Maybe tens of thousands, depending on how long it takes." I didn't have that kind of money. I had my pension and some savings, but not enough for a legal war. "What about the bank account Marcus mentioned?" Jerome asked. "Maybe there's something there." I'd almost forgotten about the account. Bank of Tennessee, account number 44778829110 "I'll go tomorrow," I said. That night, I couldn't eat. I sat on my porch, wrapped in my charcoal cardigan, even though it was warm outside, and watched the sun set. The thin gold ring on my left hand caught the light. My short natural hair, with its silver streak at my right temple, felt heavy on my head. I thought about Marcus, somewhere in Cancun with Linda, and I wondered if he knew what I'd discovered. I wondered if he was safe. The next 2 weeks crawled by. I went to the bank, but they told me I needed Marcus's authorization to access the account. I tried calling him, but he didn't answer. I left messages. I texted. Nothing. Finally, on a Thursday morning, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Gloria Carter?" a man's voice asked. He sounded official, clipped. "Yes, this is she." "Mrs. Carter, this is Lieutenant Briggs with the Skybridge Airlines Safety Office. I'm calling about your son, Captain Marcus Carter." My stomach twisted. "What about him? Is he all right?" There was a pause, too long, too heavy. "Mrs. Carter, I'm very sorry to inform you that Captain Carter's flight went down early this morning over the Atlantic. Flight 227, from Miami to London. We're still investigating, but there were no survivors." The phone slipped from my hand. I heard the man's voice calling my name, tinny and distant from the floor. No survivors. Marcus was dead. My son, my only child, the boy I'd rocked to sleep and taught to ride a bike and watched grow into a man who flew planes across the ocean. I don't remember picking up the phone again. I don't remember what else Lieutenant Briggs said. I remember sitting on the floor of my kitchen, the sunlight streaming through the window, and feeling like the world had ended. Jerome came over an hour later. He'd heard the news. He held me while I cried, and when I finally stopped, he made me tea and sat with me in silence. "Aunt Gloria," he said quietly, "I'm so sorry." I nodded. I couldn't speak. "Do you want me to call anyone? Make arrangements?" I shook my head. "Linda will do it. She's his wife." The word tasted like poison. The funeral was held 6 days later. The church was packed. Marcus had been loved by his crew, by his friends, by the families who'd flown with him for years and trusted him with their lives. Linda sat in the front row, veiled and weeping. Maya sat beside her, silent and pale, holding her mother's hand. I sat next to them, my hands folded in my lap, the thin gold ring on my left finger catching the light. I wore the same charcoal cardigan and dark dress I'd worn to the wedding. My short natural hair was neat, the silver streak at my right temple visible when I turned my head. My small gold hoop earrings felt cold against my neck. I didn't cry during the service. I couldn't. The tears were locked, somewhere deep inside, behind a wall of shock. The pastor talked about Marcus's kindness, his skill, his love for his family. People stood and shared memories. Linda gave a eulogy, her voice breaking, talking about how Marcus had been her everything. I watched her and thought about the note. Don't let her take it. After the service, we gathered at the cemetery. The coffin was closed. There hadn't been much to recover from the crash. They lowered him into the ground, and I finally felt the tears come, hot and bitter. I stood there long after everyone else had left, staring at the fresh earth, and I whispered, "I'll find out what you meant, baby. I promise." That evening, Linda came to my house. She didn't call first. She just knocked on the door, and when I opened it, she was standing there in her black dress, her face composed. "Gloria, we need to talk," she said. I let her in. We sat in the living room, the same room where Marcus had played with his toy cars as a child. Linda folded her hands in her lap and looked at me with calm, clear eyes. "Marcus and I had an agreement," she said. "Before he died, he told me that if anything happened to him, I would inherit everything, including this house." I felt the air leave my lungs. "What are you talking about? This house is mine." "Not anymore," Linda said. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded document. "Marcus signed a transfer deed 3 months ago. This house now belongs to me. I'm giving you 30 days to move out." She slid the paper across the coffee table. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was the same forged deed I'd seen at the clerk's office. "This isn't real," I said. "Marcus didn't sign this. I didn't sign this." "It's notarized," Linda said. "It's legal, and if you fight me, I'll take you to court. You'll lose, Gloria. You'll lose everything, including your dignity." She stood up, smoothing her dress. "I'm trying to be kind. I'm giving you 30 days. Use them wisely." She walked to the door, then paused and looked back at me. "I hope we can stay civil, for Maya's sake." Then she was gone. I sat there, holding the forged deed, my heart pounding. She was trying to steal my house, and she was using Marcus's death to do it, but I wasn't going to let her win. I called Jerome and he came over immediately. We sat at the kitchen table, and I showed him the deed. "This is the same one from the clerk's office," I said. "She forged my signature, and I think she forged Marcus's too." Jerome studied the document. "We need a handwriting expert, and we need to move fast. If you don't challenge this within 30 days, it'll be much harder to fight." "I don't have money for a lawyer," I said. "What about the bank account Marcus mentioned?" I tried to access it, but the bank had refused without Marcus's authorization. But now Marcus was dead. Maybe the rules were different. "Let me make some calls," Jerome said. The next morning, Jerome and I went to the Bank of Tennessee on Murfreesboro Road. I wore my charcoal cardigan, even though it was warm outside. The silver streak in my short natural hair caught the light as we walked through the glass doors. We approached the counter and asked to speak to someone about account 44778829110 The teller typed into her computer and frowned. "Ma'am, I can't give you information about that account unless you're an authorized user." "I'm Gloria Carter," I said. "My son Marcus Carter opened that account. He passed away 2 weeks ago." Her face softened. I'm so sorry for your loss. Let me get a manager. The manager, a man in his 50s, named Mr. Dewey, came out and listened to our story. He checked the account and nodded. Mrs. Carter, you are listed as the sole beneficiary on this account. With your son's death certificate, I can give you access. Relief flooded through me. What's in it? Mr. Dewey looked at his screen. It's a savings account with a current balance of $247,000. I nearly fell out of my chair. What? Your son made regular deposits over the past 3 years, Mr. Dewey said. It looks like he was setting this aside for you. $247,000. Marcus had been saving for me, hiding money from Linda, making sure I'd be taken care of. My eyes filled with tears. There's also a safe deposit box linked to this account, Mr. Dewey said. Would you like to access it? I nodded, unable to speak. He led us to the vault, and I signed the forms with a shaking hand, my thin gold ring clinking against the pen. He unlocked box 342 and handed it to me, then left Jerome and me alone in a small private room. I opened the box. Inside were 3 things: a USB drive, a sealed envelope with my name on it, and a copy of my house deed, dated 2 months ago, with my name still on it, certified and notarized by a different notary than the one on Linda's forged version. I opened the envelope first. Marcus's handwriting filled the page, and seeing it made my chest ache. Mom, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry, I should have told you sooner, but I was trying to handle it myself. I was wrong. 6 months ago, I started noticing things about Linda, small things at first. She kept asking about your house, about the deed, about whether you'd made a will. She asked if I was the beneficiary. I thought she was just being practical, planning for our future. But then I found emails on her laptop. She'd been researching how to forge signatures. She'd been in contact with a lawyer about transferring property ownership, and she'd been talking to someone named Rick Dalton about life insurance policies. I hired a private investigator. What he found terrified me. Linda has done this before, twice. Her first husband, Robert Chen, died in a car accident in 2012. She inherited his estate, worth over $1 million. Her second husband, David Brennan, died of a heart attack in 2018. She inherited his house and his life insurance. And David Brennan was your husband, Mom. She was married to Dad. She killed him. The investigator found hospital records showing elevated levels of a slow-acting poison in Dad's system. The doctors missed it because it mimicked a heart attack. Linda is a pharmaceutical sales rep. She has access to drugs most people have never heard of. She poisoned Dad, and she's planning to kill me too. I've been collecting evidence. The USB drive has everything: emails, bank records, audio recordings, text messages. I recorded conversations between Linda and Rick Dalton, the mechanic who works on Skybridge planes. She's paying him to sabotage my next transatlantic flight. I've tried to go to the police, but I don't have enough proof yet. Everything is circumstantial, and if I confront Linda, she'll disappear. So I'm setting a trap. I'm going to let her think her plan is working. I'm going to fly the route she and Rick have targeted. But I've also filed reports with the airline, with the FAA, and with a lawyer. If something happens to me, they'll investigate. And I've made sure you're protected. The house deed in this box is the real one. The one Linda has is a fake. I had a friend create it to make her think she'd succeeded. She won't be able to steal the house because legally, it's still yours. The money in this account is for you. Use it to fight her. Use it to protect yourself. And Maya, I'm sorry I dragged you into this. I'm sorry I married someone so dangerous. I thought I could stop her, but if you're reading this, I failed. Take the USB drive to the police. Show them everything. Linda Hartman, that's her real name, not Linda Carter, is a serial killer. She's killed at least 3 people, maybe more. Don't let her get away with it. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry. Marcus. My hands shook so hard, the letter fluttered. Jerome read it over my shoulder, his face pale. Aunt Gloria, he whispered. We need to go to the police right now. I nodded. I picked up the USB drive, the letter, and the real house deed, and we left the bank. We drove straight to the downtown police station on Davidson Street. I walked in with the evidence clutched to my chest, and I asked to speak to a detective. They sent out Detective Laura Mills, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a steady voice. I told her everything. I gave her the letter, the USB drive, the deed. She listened without interrupting, taking notes, her expression growing grimmer with every sentence. When I finished, she said, "Mrs. Carter, I'm going to need some time to review this evidence, but based on what you've told me, we'll open an investigation immediately." "What about Linda?" I asked. "She told me I have to move out of my house in 30 days. "Don't sign anything," Detective Mills said, "and don't move out. If this deed is forged, you have every right to stay in your home. We'll get a handwriting expert to verify it." She took the USB drive and disappeared into a back room. Jerome and I sat in the waiting area for 2 hours. Finally, Detective Mills came back, and her face was hard. "Mrs. Carter, the evidence on this drive is extensive. We have enough to bring Linda Hartman in for questioning. We're also going to investigate Rick Dalton and the maintenance records for Flight 227. "Do you think you can prove she did it?" I asked. "I think your son did most of the work for us," Detective Mills said. "He was thorough. He recorded everything. If the audio is authentic, we have her on conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and possibly 3 counts of homicide." I felt something break open inside me. Relief, grief, rage, all at once. "How long will it take?" "Weeks, maybe months," she said. "But we'll move as fast as we can. In the meantime, I need you to stay safe. Don't confront Linda. Don't tell her you've been to the police. Let us handle it." I nodded. Jerome drove me home, and I sat on my porch as the sun set, wrapped in my charcoal cardigan, the thin gold ring on my left hand catching the fading light. I thought about Marcus, about how he'd tried to protect me even as he was planning to risk his own life. I thought about my husband David, about how I'd mourned him for 10 years without knowing he'd been murdered. And I thought about Linda, sitting somewhere in her house, thinking she'd won. 3 days later, the police arrested Linda. They came to her door early in the morning with a warrant. They arrested Rick Dalton the same day. The news spread fast. Skybridge Airlines launched an internal investigation. The FAA grounded Rick's entire maintenance team pending review. And the FBI got involved because the crash had killed 46 passengers, making it a federal case. The evidence Marcus had collected was airtight. The USB drive contained audio recordings of Linda and Rick discussing the sabotage. It contained emails between Linda and a black market contact about purchasing poison. It contained bank records showing payments from Linda to Rick, $50,000 over 6 months. And it contained text messages between Linda and an unknown number discussing the plan and the payout. The handwriting expert confirmed that the deed Linda had filed was a forgery. My signature had been forged. Marcus's signature had been forged. The real deed, the one Marcus had left in the safe deposit box, was legitimate. My house was still mine. Linda's lawyer tried to argue that Marcus had fabricated the evidence, that he'd been paranoid and unstable. But the prosecution had too much. They had Rick Dalton's confession. He'd agreed to testify against Linda in exchange for a reduced sentence. They had the maintenance logs showing the sabotage. They had the recordings, and they had the exhumed body of my husband David, which showed traces of a slow-acting cardiotoxin in his tissues. Linda Hartman had killed 3 people, my husband, my son, and 46 innocent passengers on Flight 227. The trial lasted 4 months. I attended every day, sitting in the courtroom in my charcoal cardigan and dark dress, my small gold hoop earrings and thin gold ring the only jewelry I wore. My short natural hair, with its silver streak at my right temple, turned grayer as the trial dragged on. I listened to the evidence. I watched Linda sit at the defense table, calm and composed, acting like the victim. I watched the jury's faces as they heard the recordings, as they saw the bank records, as they listened to Rick Dalton describe how he'd loosened the bolts on the plane's hydraulic system. And I watched the jury convict her on all counts. Linda Hartman was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rick Dalton got 25 years. And I went home to my house, the house Linda had tried to steal, and I sat on my porch and cried. I cried for Marcus, who died trying to stop a killer. I cried for David, who'd been murdered and buried without justice. I cried for Maya, who'd lost her father and would grow up knowing her stepmother was a monster. And I cried for myself, for the years I'd lost, for the grief I'd carry forever. But I also felt something else. Relief. Marcus had saved me. He'd left me the tools to fight back, the evidence to bring Linda down, the money to rebuild my life. He'd known he was walking into danger, and he'd made sure I'd survive. After the trial, I used the money Marcus had left me to set up a trust fund for Maya. I made sure she'd have enough for college, for a house, for whatever she needed. I kept some for myself, enough to live comfortably, to travel a little, to donate to causes Marcus had cared about. And I kept the house. I repainted the shutters, I replanted the rose bushes, I fixed the porch swing. I made it mine again, the way it had been before Linda came into our lives. Maya visits me often. She's 9 now, smart and strong, with her father's eyes and her father's courage. We bake cookies together. We read books, we talk about Marcus, and I tell her stories about when he was little. I tell her he was a hero, and I make sure she knows how much he loved her. People ask me how I survived it all. The grief, the betrayal, the legal battle. I tell them the truth. I survived because Marcus gave me everything I needed to fight. He left me the note. He left me the evidence. He left me the account. He left me a way out. And I tell them this. If someone you love warns you about danger, listen. If they leave you a message, read it. If they tell you to check the deed, check it, because sometimes the people who love us see things we don't. Sometimes they're trying to save our lives, even when they're running out of time themselves. Marcus saved mine, and I'll spend the rest of my days honoring that. I'll protect Maya. I'll keep his memory alive, and I'll live the life he fought so hard to give me. That's my promise to him. That's how I survive. Now, when I sit on my porch in the evenings, wrapped in my charcoal cardigan, the thin gold ring on my left hand catching the light, I think about everything I've been through. I think about the wedding, the note, the funeral, the trial. I think about how close I came to losing everything. And I think about how Marcus, even in death, was still protecting me. The silver streak in my short natural hair is wider now, a reminder of the stress and grief I've endured. My warm, deep brown skin has a few more lines, etched by tears and sleepless nights. But I'm still here. I'm still standing, and that's what matters. Linda is gone. Locked away forever. Rick is serving his sentence. The truth came out, and justice was served. Marcus's name was cleared. The airline held a memorial service for him, honoring his bravery and his sacrifice. They called him a hero, and they were right. I keep the note he wrote me in a frame on my mantle. I read it sometimes when I miss him so much it hurts. And I remember his words, "Don't let her take it." I didn't. I fought for my home, for my life, for the truth, and I won. That's my story. That's how a mother's love and a son's courage brought down a killer. That's how I survived.